Okay, welcome to the third webinar that describes the the term projects that you will be doing this semester. The term project has two parts. The first part is an inclusion plan. Its value is 15% and it's independent research. And the second part is a collaborative project in which 3 to 4 students will be assigned to each group to work on the individual education plan form. Okay, let's go back to the inclusion plan. In today's classroom, students with disabilities are being included in the general education class. More and more students are leaving the isolation of the special ed classroom and special ed schools to join other students in the classroom. So you are required to write an inclusion plan. You will again be assigned a student with a disability and an age group. And for that project, you will do the following. You will indicate 5 characteristics of the student's disability. You will look at the list of personnel who work with this student. For example, a student might need a speech therapist, so that's the kind of specialties that we'll be looking at. 5 modifications or strategies or accommodations that this student will need to succeed in an inclusive classroom. You need to determine whether the student needs medications or if there's any side effects that impact learning in the classroom and learning at home. So these are the kinds of questions you would be asking yourself and researching. You also need to indicate 3 measurable annual goals. And if your student does not have a multiple or severe disability, then you will be completing 3 annual goals. If, however, the student has a severe disability, that student will be taking an alternate assessment and therefore will need short-term objectives which are listed along with the annual goal. So, for example, you have 1 annual goal, you have 3 short-term objectives, and you will receive instruction how to do that. They also need to include a transition plan. If your student is 15 or 16, he or she may be required to have a transition plan in place. And along with the rest of the requirements in the inclusion plan, you have to include 5 references that match the references, citations in the body of your PowerPoint. This is a PowerPoint project. You cannot use your textbooks, the Smith and Tyler textbook or your case study book, as references. Your inclusion plan will be submitted to Prevention Plagiarism program to determine whether you gave credit to the research that you found to use in your PowerPoint. And I strongly suggest that you review the rubrics for the assignment before completing the assignment. It's important to know what's required and how you will be evaluated, and the rubrics do just that. Also, rubrics are an item you will hear a lot about in the school system, so it's good to be familiar with them and how they can be used. Of course, the inclusion plan has to be submitted on the date due, or else there is a penalty of 10 points for lateness. The second part of the project is a collaborative project, as I mentioned before, and there will be 3 to 4 students in each group. You will be completing a form that's used in New York City. It's called SESIS-IEP. It stands for Special Education Student Information System - Individual Education Program. So that's where we get the SESIS-IEP. And it's a relatively new form. What is it? It's an IEP really online with instructions to help teachers to work with students, and it helps them get all the information and even more than the old format. You will see the layout of the form, and it covers a lot of different information. It covers the present levels of performance, and you need to look at all those items to determine your annual goals. And again, you may have to use short-term objectives if you have a student with a multiple and severe disabilities. Also, all the items will be completed, such as the recommended programs and services, and the summary page, and whether the student is participating in state and district-wide assessments, or whether that student is actually taking an alternate assessment. The transition activities that I spoke about in the inclusion plan are also required in the SES-IEP. If the student is 15 in New York State, you're required to fill out a transition plan. And if the student, if you're in other states, then the federal requirement is 16 years old. You also have to include a behavior intervention plan, if necessary, in that form. And 3 references will be listed on the reference page. And there are many websites in the required reading section that will help you process the IEP form. So that part of the assignment is worth 7%. So we have 15% for the inclusion plan and 7% for the collaborative plan, the IEP. And I'm sure if there are other questions, I will be happy to answer them as you send them to me. Thank you, and we'll be talking again.